If you are a fan of the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast and would like to help support the show, there's a great way that you can do that and start a new fashion trend. We have a new merchandise page on the website which features t-shirts and hoodies that are available for sale on Amazon. Just click on merchandise in the top menu and all of the links will be there, or go directly to divebarrockstar.com/merchandise. Get started early on your Christmas shopping at divebarrockstar.com. Welcome to the Dive Bar Rockstar Podcast, a show exploring the lives and journeys of musicians and music professionals. I'm your host, Eric Baines. I play bass and sing with the iconic band Chicago, and I love talking about music. I hope these conversations will entertain you with some stories of what it's like in the world of music, as well as help you get where you want to be in the music industry. But above all, achieve your dreams. So I am in Kirkland, Washington right now, out on the road with the fine band Chicago. And I got to say, I love seeing the fans with the Dive Bar Rockstar shirts out here on the road. It's so amazing, and I'm very honored that you would put my name on your chest. So keep it up. It's very cool. It just adds so much energy to the show for me. So it makes it extra special when you guys show up in the shirts, in the attire. I'm really honored. It's a privilege for, to see that out there. So I appreciate it. And I'd also like to talk to you about, I'm working on a new record, and it just made me think, and I'm hoping to have it done by Christmas. That's my goal. I'm going to be working very hard in October when we get home to get it happening. But I wanted to mention also that I already I have 2.5 records on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you can stream, Amazon, anywhere that you can stream music. And the thing about it, and I say it on this podcast to a lot of the guests, is that it's not like the old days where I made a record, but now it's out of print, so you can't get it. Now once it's up there on the internet, it's up there forever. So you can enjoy it for free, most of the time. I mean, Spotify, I'm pretty sure it's free. You might have to listen to ads if you don't pay for the service, but if you do, it's up there and it's free, and it really helps to support me and the show. And obviously, if you like the music, I'm not begging you to listen to stuff you don't enjoy, but it really helps out if you take a listen once in a while, and it helps with the numbers, and it helps keep everything rolling along. So if you enjoy my music, just know that it's up there. I got 3. I have Reinvention, I have Dive Bar Rockstar, obviously, and then I have an EP called Try Love. I also have a couple of singles, Me and My Arrow, and one I did during 2020, which is called The Long Night. Okay, I remembered. So check it out. It's always up there, and it's always waiting for you to take a listen. My guest today is a trombone player that I've known for many years, but lately we've been working together quite a bit. And he's a top LA session player who also writes and arranges music for some of the top artists in the world. He's toured with Maynard Ferguson, Rod Stewart, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, The Who, Neil Diamond, Etta James, and many, many others. He's recorded on albums by artists such as Supertramp, REO Speedwagon, Maynard Ferguson, my former boss Keiko Matsui, Yes, No Doubt, Joe Cocker, Michael Bublé, and the list the list goes on forever. But he's also toured and recorded and arranged horns for the incredible band that I work with the most, Chicago. He's been subbing for Jimmy Pankow for many years. We'll talk about that in the podcast. And I talked him into coming over to my hotel room. He's been out here touring with us lately too, so I talked him into coming over and letting me harass him. And he's a really great guy, and he's an awesome hang, and he's an incredible horn player. So please enjoy my conversation with Nick Lane. We were talking the other night, and it turns out you've been subbing in this wonderful band, Chicago, for longer than most of us players have been in this band, 25 years or something. So what was your Chicago origin story?
Well, everybody has their story of the influence that this band has had on them. I met them in 1979.
Wow.
when I was with Maynard Ferguson and they were recording their Street Player album at A&M. We were both at A&M Records, and both bands, Maynard and Chicago, were on CBS at the time. So we just happened to be coincidentally at A&M at the same time. And so Maynard ended up playing on Street Player, and Danny Seraphin ended up playing on our version, my arrangement of the theme from Rocky II, where Sylvester Stallone punched a punching bag in the disco breakdown section.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty epic.
So that's when I met those guys. But I would see Jimmy in different times when I was with Rod Stewart. I know we shared a hotel in Detroit one time and hung out there. And then I saw him again in the 90s, I guess maybe when he had broken his wrist, or he'd hurt his wrist and wasn't sure if he was going to need to put it in a cast.
Oh, wow.
And so I was still doing Rod Stewart at that time. And so we talked about it, but he was able to tough it out. But then in 1999, he got married and started to focus on trying to keep that together. And so I would fill in for him. But always, like he had said, this band had always created, the image is, 8 guys in the band, making music. It wasn't about the individuals.
Right.
So it was always an honor and a privilege to fill in. And yet, he's the real deal. It's his gig and it's his band. And so it's a great challenge. So I love doing it.
Yeah. And you had to have been a fan being a trombone player.
Yeah. As a kid. Yeah. I had a little band in high school. With the first concert we played, I think we did, does anybody know what time it is? And 25 or 6 to 4. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is a great legacy of music.
Yeah. And it's and you played on Now, right? Is that the only record you've played on? Or?
Oh, I think I worked on some of their Christmas things.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
So you're kind of like a legit part of you're not just a sub, is what I'm trying to say.
It's Jimmy's show.
Of course.
I'm happy to be here. I have so much respect for all the guys and all the guys that have been in the band over the years,
Yeah.
So it's a tremendous honor to.
So who was in the band the first time you subbed?
Well, it was back in the, Walt Parazater was the sax player, founding member, and Bill Champlin and Jason Sheff and Tris in Bowden.
Bill was still in it. That's cool, yeah.
Yeah. So it was, so I've watched the evolution of the band, but I think this is like so many other bands that my buddies that, play in Tower of Power, as new guys come in, it brings in new blood, new energy,
right,
new excitement. It seems like it's being in a band full time is hard, and even if it's your own band, I'm guessing I only can see that. And as a sideman, and I can't speak for you, but as a lifelong sideman, I appreciate a gig for what it is, and I don't count on it lasting forever.
Right.
And I've seen guys get a little bit tweaked out if they think, okay, this is it. I've arrived.
Right.
You have to always kind of think, and this is a privilege to be here.
Yeah.
And it may not last forever. So enjoy it while you can.
Right. Unless it's your name on the marquee.
Well, and
then you're just a side dude.
I've never had the aspirations for that. Although I had an ill-fated album in 1985.
Well, I was going to get to that. I wanted to talk all about that. Actually.
So I stuck my toe in that pond of solo artist and realized I had no capacity.
You realized that Jimmy's going to be the only rock star trombone player that's ever existed.
I had a chance to work with Trombone Shorty a couple of years ago,
right.
and he is a legitimate he's a talented guy. It seems like a nice cat, and he's made trombone cool. Jimmy made it cool as well. So it's not easy, blowing into a 6-foot brass tube and making that look, making that look good. So,
oh man, I know, that's funny. So, and along with that, in this band, there's a certain amount of, I don't know, I wouldn't call it choreography, but there's a certain amount of energy that has to be brought, because you are replacing Jimmy when, you're subbing for Jimmy, and he brings so much. So is this like one of the only bands that's like that for you, or is that kind of a usual thing on the,
Well, no, it comes, having a good time comes naturally to me. And certainly playing this music is a great time and it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And so I'm used to, being active when I play, so I always, even as a kid, people say, gee, you look like you're having such a great time. And you go, well, awesome. Geez, I think I am, and maybe it's that you have a low threshold of entertainment and so you're easily amused or something. But as far as this gig, I remember one of the first times I was going to fill in for Jimmy at Caesars in Atlantic City, like for a week. Mm-hmm. So I came in early to watch the show. And I came backstage, I'm kind of new to the whole thing. I don't really know any of the guys in the band. And Jimmy's kind of the only guy I sort of know. And so I've been practicing the songs and everything. And I go over and I said, man, Jimmy, I know the notes, but I'm not sure if I can, cover all the moves and all the phrasing and all, the actual details of it, the thing that he brings to it that really nobody else can.
Right. But you did.
No.
Do. They continue to call you back. So,
well, obviously, I'm no threat to Jimmy anyway.
That is the tricky part of calling us up. You want them to be good, but not too good.
Well, and I don't have any problem not being too good. That seems to be my forte.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know about that. Well, tell me a little about Walt, because I wish I could have met him, because the way that people talk in this camp are just so positive about him and his presence. And did you have a good relationship with him? And
yeah, I mean, Walt was very gregarious. I hope he still is. He had such a great memory, which is the irony of what's happened. In that he could remember like every gig, somebody that would come to and say, oh, I saw you guys in 73 in the Houston, Enormo Dome. And he would go, oh, they had the backstage area where, and he would have some detail that he would remember. And he was just, he was like a great spokesman for the band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And those guys, I used to ride when I would fill in for Jimmy. Initially, I would ride on the bus with Walt and Robert and Lee, and they would get to talking about coming up in the club scene in Chicago.
Yeah.
And Walt was he and Terry Kath kind of put their heads together to form the band. They were in Walt's living room when they did their whiskey toast of let's make a go with a band. And so Walt kind of, I thought he always sort of took ownership of pulling everybody together. He was like the catalyst, maybe, that was my perception. But it was such fun to hear them tell stories of all the club bands. It must have been a really vibrant scene of musicians. And I've come to play with a bunch of other guys from Chicago. Marty Greb was a sax player, keyboard guy that played with Bonnie Raitt for years, was in a band. And Cal David, who was a blues guitar guy, was in a band with Peter Cetera, I think The Exceptions, all those names of those bands. And so they'd get to talking about who was at this club and who was in this band.
Yeah.
It just was, it was fun. The way everybody came together and the magic of this and sort of like what the introduction, the song is.
Right.
They play every night.
Right.
Very kind of autobiographical of what they all pulled together and created.
Yeah, that's awesome. It almost feels like he was a leader, kind of like you were saying. Like everyone sort of talks about, and then Walt, when they talk about him, it seems like they're looking up. You know what I mean, to the leader.
Yeah,
guy.
And he embodied that same intelligence and focus and musicianship that everybody seemed to have in the band. That they were all well spoken, they were all smart guys, Like Chicago was, I think, the education system. Every time I would meet, growing up in Iowa, when I would meet kids my age from Chicago, they were way advanced musically from
Right.
me, and so there was it must have been a great. I mean, kind of like that, like New Orleans has a style, and or what came out of Minneapolis with the Prince, or out of Seattle. That there was this sudden surge of energy and talent and inspiration that came out of Chicago. I think in the 60s. Well, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, and all those bands that came out of Chicago.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So Iowa, you weren't too far.
But it was so far.
But that was probably the closer. Well, maybe Denver. Actually, I don't know. That was the closest huge city.
Yeah, I had very little exposure to music other than being a band geek. So it was a slow education. I always felt like I was trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Like every situation I was in, I didn't know about that. And it was like
an
opportunity to learn. But I always felt like I had to work harder because I was from Iowa.
No, I came from Broomfield, Colorado.
See?
So I understand. And then my mom had moved to the East Coast at some point, and I remember, and my cousins and stuff moved to Kentucky. And even Kentucky, it seemed like when you're there, you're so close to bigger cities in that whole region of the country. So just the programs there are amazing. And then when I got to Berkeley, and you meet all these people that came from Boston or New York, and you're like, how do you know all this stuff? Like I didn't get any of that in high school.
When did you go to Berkeley? When
I was there in 91 to 93.
Okay, I think we talked about this because I headed out there in 74.
Right.
And then
a little bit before me.
Just barely. But the same thing. I didn't know who Miles Davis was. I'd never heard of Charlie Parker. It was like, so I was like, catching up, trying to, learn all the jazz and all the harmony. And it was a tremendous education to be in that environment.
Right.
As well as the school.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in the dorm with a third year guy who was still living in the dorm. But he was a sax player, a huge bebop guy, and he had one of those big wooden racks of cassette tapes, sitting. And then every day he would be like, "Okay, it's time for jazz hour, and let me show you some stuff."
Yeah,
it was so cool. It was really, gave me a little bit of a leg up because at least I had a resource, to catch me up.
Well, even when I was in school there, though, I had the sense, I was writing big band charts and stuff, but I just had the sense of I wanted to be part of something new, something different. I was in a lounge band, that played swing music. You had to play "I'm Getting Sentimental Over You" every night.
Yeah.
And I knew it was like, I don't want to play the music of the 40s.
Right.
I want to, and I dig the jazz and that was the 50s and 60s. But I knew that my future wasn't being the next great jazz trombonist. You could already get the notion that that trombone was not the vehicle that people wanted to hear for a straight ahead jazz thing. And when I was in school there, I remember I'd heard the Brecker brothers had played with, I'd heard them on a Horace Silver album, and Billy Cobham they played with, and I saw them at the Jazz Workshop or Paul's Mall. I would see the Brecker brothers with Horace Silver and Billy Cobham, and then they showed up and played the Jazz Workshop, which is like a place that where you would, there was a stage and just room for 100 people to stand there. They were going to play 5 nights at the Jazz Workshop. I think it was like $1 to get in or something, and they had their own band, the Brecker brothers. And there was a new album out, and there was this alto saxophonist in the band that just blew me away. And I just remember that feeling of being inspired and just completely not scared away, but encouraged.
Yeah,
that there was this amazing thing going on.
Yeah,
And it was, of course, David Sanborn was the alto player who I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
So all that stuff was kind of happening at that time that wasn't swing music. It was, fusion, and it was new, and that really was exciting.
Like the original fusion,
yeah,
it was the moment.
Yeah, so that really got me going.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always say there's kind of two different people. If you're the kind that goes to see a show like that and you want to go bury your instrument in the ground, stay in Iowa. If you're the kind that looks at that and is like, I need to practice, then you might have a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So what brought you to the trombone?
Yeah.
Why did you pick that?
Yeah, there was no picking. But I will say, and in my own defense, in Iowa, I came up, in the late 60s, early 70s. The Music Man was still a big thing, the musical. And there is a song called 76 Trombones.
Yeah.
So it seemed like, there were obviously a demand.
Right.
If there's a song, the 76 of them.
It's about you.
I could be one of those.
You already had a theme song.
How hard could it be? No, I started on euphonium because my older brother played trombone, and I didn't want to do what he did.
Gotcha.
And so, but then when I got to 7th grade, the band director said, "You're going to play in the jazz band," and I was so small that I couldn't even reach the last position on the trombone.
Right.
So I never took trombone all that serious. I only switched to it, as I say, for the money.
Whoops. No, that's awesome. I mean, we the world needs trombones. So
well, and
someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I still play euphonium, and I played euphonium. Toured with the Who playing euphonium.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Euphonium and bass trombone. So,
awesome.
there was. I still whip that euphonium out. And what I usually say when people say, well, "How much will that cost?" To have you play euphonium on this, and it's like, well, it's free for me to get it out, but it's $200 for me to put it away. Because I love playing it, and I would do that for free. I played in the Long Beach Municipal Band one summer just to play euphonium parts in concert band. It's
cool.
It's really beautiful, beautiful music. It's a beautiful instrument that's not used all that much.
Yeah, right. A relic.
It kind of, but it does. It never really evolved. When I went to college majoring in euphonium, and so I didn't even know. People were saying, "We don't give applied music degrees in euphonium," and it was like, "Oh, you don't?" I didn't know.
Interesting.
I had no idea.
Wow. Well, that's kind of the same as electric bass. Honestly, that's just why when I found Berklee College of Music, I was like, oh, they let me play electric,
were you an acoustic bass guy?
No.
Oh,
that's
no.
my point. And when I was looking at colleges in Colorado, it's like, you got to play upright. That's and then you get to play electric in this band if you make it,
Oh, yeah. It's not a serious
but
instrument.
you can't major in it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
that can't be your principal instrument. So there's not a lot of schools that electric bass is a thing.
Yeah.
So
I hadn't thought about that. It's probably true.
Yeah, and I have an upright because one time I got a call and it was for Barry Manilow, but they weren't telling me. And Stan Sargent, Stan Sargent?
I remember Stan Sargent. Yeah.
Yeah, he called me and he's like, "Hey man, you play upright, right?" And I'm like, "Yes." So I went and I bought an upright because I had played a little bit in high school, and then for a minute in college in Denver, but I just knew right away. It's like, it's you were just saying, I don't know if we were recording yet, but about your voice and how you don't like it. That's why you don't sing well. And the upright bass, it's okay when you're walking straight ahead jazz or whatever, but the bowing and stuff, it's like I don't enjoy that tone of a single upright bass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to try to practice and be good at something you really don't enjoy, I just this is not going to happen.
Well, it's such a different instrument than the electric. I mean, those are such. I mean, even though they play the same function,
right? but it's
technically it's a
it's
whole
like a whole different muscles. Like,
yeah.
It's a whole different deal. So if you're not extremely motivated.
And did you come up with in the fretless? So when I was first out with Maynard, the fretless bass, Jocko was just kind of new on the scene, and that whole thing was exploding where everybody was playing fretless bass.
Right. Not really. I mean, in the 80s, it kind of came back with like Duran Duran had fretless on their pop records. And,
Really?
And Pino Palladino on, Don Henley, so it was kind of a thing then. But by the time I was really working, I had a fretless for a long time, and no one ever called me for it by the time I was doing that. And I was doing a lot of R&B, so like it wasn't really a thing there. So I eventually sold it to pay the rent, when I was first in LA.
Fretless kind of fell under the cliche of like it got so exposed or so promoted with Jocko, and it became synonymous with that, and kind of imploded under its own popularity or something. I don't know.
Well, it's such a distinct voice. And for bass, you sort of want it to be somewhat invisible sometimes, depending on the era of music. Some types of music is just low end, and it's meant to be felt and not heard. Whereas fretless, as soon as you move your finger a little, it pops out of the mix. It doesn't function the same way as just a fretted bass, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I'd always kind of come up, thinking that bass and the bass and the bass drum were sort of the foundation of any track.
Yeah.
When you do a mix, you're putting the bass drum and the bass, finding the frequencies where they sound good together and bring a tightness to the track.
Yeah, for sure.
And it seems like now the bass, and especially the guys using that lower fifth string down to the low B or whatever it goes down to, that just muddies the whole, to my ear. It just seems to but some tracks sound like the bass is indefinite. You don't hear the percussive part of it. You just hear this low.
Right.
Well, certainly when a truck goes by with this big speakers and there's a rap tune or something, and you hear this low end that's just indefinite kind of thing.
Right.
Which seems weird to me.
Yeah. And again, it's all, I don't know. It's taste and appropriateness, I think as a sideman too, and as a recording person, it's like, I don't really have an opinion about anything anymore. It's like, is that the tone you'd like? Sure.
Well, guys send me tracks, to do charts on or something. And when I hear that, the bass player go down to that lower fourth down below the E, it just is like, oh, don't do that.
Well, I do think it's like cheesecake. You gotta use it sparingly.
Yeah.
There's songs in Chicago on the second half, the ballads, the 80s ballads, it was key bass. So it goes that low. Like I have to play that, like the low D for sure. I hit a couple of low C's. I hit the low B actually too on Hard to Say I'm Sorry.
Really?
The very last note of the ballad before the trumpet solo comes in. Boom. And then I slide up. So this band requires it. The 80s stuff is...
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that.
But it's really a matter of EQ, and knowing what you're doing. Because that bottom end can have a really nice growl if you don't let the super sub lows get out of control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You turn those off, and then you've just got a nice growl that's fun, And in a way, it depends on the arrangement too. Like when you're going down that low, you're leaving so much space for guys in your register, actually,
sonically, you carve out. And the subwoofer thing, the advent of that changed the dynamics of live performance as well, where you had this huge bass, and bass seems to can easily fill an arena and overpower the whole thing. Or in the case of Earth, Wind and Fire, it's the foundation of that sound.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's felt by the crowd. It's like the subwoofers in movies.
Yeah.
Now when that tank's rolling along, you're feeling it in your butt.
Well, and so often I'm noticing, even in movies, contemporary movies now, you'll just hear this low frequency. It's not even underscoring, I don't think. It's just this, I guess it's supposed to be dramatic, but I with my subwoofer at home, I find it annoying.
Well, I don't want to be ageist or anything, but I do. It is the older people that I've worked with, they just hate it. Just take it out. Especially I've heard, and for vocalists as well, it's like it messes with your tuning. Like all those low rumblings makes it harder for you to hear. And trombone, obviously the tuning is vital because you don't have frets.
The big thing that in rock and roll, my big realization was don't stand too close to the Leslie speaker for the B3 organist, because like a pitch diffuser, and that became like a real breakthrough for me to say, oh, I need to stay away from that, because you can't tell what's happening.
Yeah.
It's a great sound, though. I love the sound.
Oh, yeah.
But to play along with, I guess it'd be like blending with an accordion or something.
Yeah. Well, it's spinning around and just is like where...
It's like the Doppler effect.
Exactly, yeah. That's funny. Well, speaking of the 80s and things, so what years were you with Rod Stewart? Because I was seeing a clip online and the mullet was killing.
Mine?
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, I think
awesome.
You have to, since it was before your time, I'll tell you that the 80s.
I probably had a mullet the same year. I was just 20 years younger.
The 80s. There was a pressure to use hairspray, and of course, I was working with Rod Stewart. So I started in '84.
Got you.
And
that's awesome.
And then we did Tom Petty in the same horn section. Did Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers in '85. And we convinced him to never use horns again, and went back with Rod in '86. And then every couple of years, Rod would go out for basically for a whole year. Once they got the thing up and running, it would just every other year kind of thing. And
God, yeah.
So I did that through 1995. So
that was a good run.
Did 5 kind of world tours with Rod. And it was, how when you start with a gig, they love you, and it's the horns. He wants the horns on everything, and we were having a great time. And the longer I stayed, maybe it's me personally, the longer I'm in any situation, people get tired of it. So we eventually wore out our welcome. I think our sax player, Jimmy Roberts he's still with Rod. I just talked to him when we were in Norfolk.
Wow.
He has a house down there, but he was in Toronto playing with Rod still. But so he's been with Rod almost 40 years.
Wow.
Or kind of on and off. Yeah. So.
Well, I think there was a time in the mid 80s too, where Motown came crashing back, and so there was a lot of like, let's get horns and some black backup singers, and everyone wanted to do.
That's exactly what Rod was doing. So, and it seemed like people would add horns when their career started to falter. They would add a horn section. So, but it was
the band bigger.
But it was often the same configuration as the Chicago horn section. Like the Chicago guys, sort of. Not that I'm not. I mean, I'm sure they were sort of formulating their horn section after James Brown or bands that they heard.
Right.
But that became sort of a standard configuration, was the trumpet, tenor sax, and trombone.
Yeah. Well,
so I have Jimmy to thank
for you.
Jimmy to thank for that as well.
Right.
Because that and still we still do there's still a fair amount of horn section stuff going on. So that's a popular configuration.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what brought you to LA? So you went to college and you went to Berkeley.
Yeah, I went out with Maynard Ferguson from 77 through 80, and he had a record deal at the time, and I was doing a lot of writing, and so we were doing an album every year, and I learned so much doing that.
Yeah.
But in 1980, it was like there was a limit to where I could see where that was going, and. At that time, it was really a binary choice to either go to New York or go to L.A.
Right.
And so a bunch of my friends had gone, and guys from Boston were going to New York.
Right.
And I would visit them there, and they'd be living in these funky places. And, like suddenly, like a Broadway show would be like a good gig. And it was like, I don't want to do Broadway shows. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do other than I wanted to play music for people my own age. I didn't want to play big bands anymore.
Wow.
So I moved to LA, and I didn't really know anybody. And that's why I ended up starting my own band, because waiting around for people to call you is a fairly nebulous life direction. So I called up people and see if they would come and play with me for free or almost free.
Right.
And then, somebody said, hey, you should record it. And so we recorded some of the songs. And then somebody said, well, I'll put the out. Well, we'll release it. On Cotero Records, Fred Cotero, who was an engineer who did some of those, who was with Fantasy Records early on. And then that was before CDs. I hate to admit it, but we pressed it on virgin vinyl. And then the record company went bankrupt within like a couple of months. Fred went belly up trying to do these projects. So it went away very quickly, but by that time I'd started to do the rock and roll thing, and it was so much fun. And in the same way, I guess it was a good experience to you put your own stuff out there.
Yeah.
And I still don't know how to monetize music. It was before blatant self-promotion took over,
right,
and became like the standard.
Yeah.
But, we have so many friends of ours who have careers based on their own hard work.
Yeah. Right.
And I can't fault that. I didn't have a flair for that, I guess.
No, I know what you mean. But I kind of did the same thing. I got there and I played at the Baked Potato because I ended up getting a call randomly after I just moved to town like a month, and they're like, Don Randy needs a bass player, and I go to the Baked Potato. So I played with him right off the bat, and so
that's a good gig.
Yeah.
I still play with Don once in a while.
That's cool.
Yeah, he is a cool guy. I mean, and just the longevity. Yeah. So that I didn't realize that's where you started.
Yeah.
A lot of great players went through that band.
Yeah. I mean, I played with him a couple of times, but it was enough to he liked me. So I'm like, hey, I've got a band of my own together. Can I play at the Baked Potato? So I booked a gig, through him with my own thing. And I can't remember who was playing with me at the time, but, man, that's weird. I should remember that. I'll have to look that up. I'll fix that later. But but they were all great.
Yeah. I know I can't remember who it was, but
yeah. But I played there, and then a couple of people saw me play there, and here's a new guy in town, and here's what he does. So it was a really smart thing to do. You got to kind of create your own scene, or at least create something so that you can play, because people got to hear you.
Well, and there was an element, once again, I got to LA and I'd been writing. And so I thought, well, I want to write, on movies and records and, all that.
Yeah.
And then you realize that there's people who have studied movie music.
Right.
They know all of, like I didn't know who Max Steiner was or, that they really... Oh, I was not equipped. Why would I even think I could do that? These people are, well versed and educated in this style of music. The same way that instrumentalists in LA, for guys that wanted to do sessions, they wanted to be classical guys. They wanted to, they could play jazz. They could, whatever it was. You kind of wanted to be everybody's favorite guy,
right.
or, for all styles of music.
Right.
And that was like, well, that's not really. I don't really want to play in an orchestra. I don't really have deep feelings about Wagner. So. So I kind of was like, well, I'm not really qualified to do that either.
Right.
So it was kind of I really think a rudderless ship kind of career, where you just sort of, you get gigs and that kind of guides you through and I kind of had a reputation, I guess, as being a road guy. LA is, I think any you're known for whatever you did, the last thing you did.
Right.
And I remember being kind of like guys saying, "Oh, yeah, I'd love to go out on the road. I just couldn't afford to leave town." And that has changed.
Yes.
It's a whole
Interesting.
different thing. But when I first got to town, the Musicians Union had been on strike there was a big strike in 1980, I guess. I got there in 81. And so Bobby Shue, who was kind of a well-known trumpet player at that time, session guy, great player, still is, but I had met him through Maynard, and he goes, "Call me when you get to town." So I call him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, the music business is over. We lost the strike. They've taken the music elsewhere. The directors, writers, actors all went out on strike because of the proliferation of cable TV.
Wow.
All of them settled and got new contracts." Except the musicians. So it was kind of a dark time. And so it was always, "Oh, well, you should have been here in the 70s, man. We were all, doing 2 TV shows a week and, all these movies and stuff." Yeah. And maybe it didn't really ever come back to that. And Bobby Shue went ahead and did clinics and concerts and played jazz and made a great career out of that.
Yeah.
So, for him, the music business was over. But for the rest of us, there were still lots of opportunities. And when I hear people say that now, AI or whatever the doomsday scenario is, it's like, I wouldn't be so quick to count us out. Yeah. I think there's still room for live music or recorded music. There's room for good music, I think.
Yeah. Well, it'd be one thing if you walked down the street and you didn't hear music anymore, but people still listen to, we sell out every night still, like somehow, there's obviously a need for it. And live music, I always, when I got to town, I kind of made that conscious choice of like, it's going to take me just as much work to be a studio guy as it's going to be a road guy. And I don't really want to spend my life in a dungeon, doing studio stuff. And so I wanted to see the world and travel. So that's what I did. And so now we get here where it's like live music is kind of the only way to make money anymore, you know, and like, well, I guess we made the right choice, and that's the thing. You can't reproduce that live experience anywhere else. It just doesn't. AI is not going to do it. There's something to, you can put it on a DVD and put it in your thing and watch it at your house, but it doesn't feel like when you're standing there listening to somebody sing or play it, So I feel like in that sense, we're going to be fine.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It does feel like to me, though, that and this started with punk music or with rap, that it wasn't about being an educated instrumentalist. It wasn't about aspiring to be a better musician. It became more of a pop cultural kind of item. And there was the sameness, that, from my perspective, of a lot of music, as though, and smooth jazz, unfortunately, has fallen the same way, that initially we were all inspired by Herbie Hancock or, or Miles Davis, or, the doing fusion grooves and instrumental music. Mm-hmm. And then it became formulaic. And I think a lot of music has gone down that path.
It's interesting too, because now there isn't like this gatekeeper situation that, radio's gone. It's not like you have to make it a certain genre to fit into the rack at the record store, yet there's still this sort of, there's no, what's happening in music now. There's no movement right now, or there probably hasn't been for 10 years. That hasn't already happened. You know what I mean? Like, Bruno Mars is amazing. He's a very talented dude, but James Brown and Michael Jackson did all that already, like.
I think that's what it feels like to us, but maybe for somebody who has never heard of Michael Jackson or,
but that's the other thing that's weird, because you can go on Spotify and have access to everything now,
Well, and that's why you still see young people at the Chicago concerts. Yeah. But I think in a lot of cases, and I know it's true with me, the music that I grew up with in high school. Then like there's this window of imprinting or something where we're all sort of imprinted with the style of music that when we hear it again, we get this sort of combination of familiarity and I don't know, there's an intimate kind of connection that music brings. And I think that's, I'm sure young people are now, they're imprinting on whoever, Taylor Swift or.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
And they don't really care about the Beatles anymore, or they don't care about, the Eagles or something.
Right. Yeah. That's why I'm so glad whenever I see my kid, my 4-year-old singing Chicago songs, I'm like, I'm imprinting the right stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a dive-bar rock star.
So if you are a fan of the podcast, you know that I talk often about education. I truly believe that knowledge is power, and learning has the power to transform your life. When I first started my podcast, I had no idea what I was doing. So I took an online course to learn the ins and outs of podcast production and how to build my website. So I want to tell you about this great site called Skillshare. Skillshare has over 25,000 creative classes to choose from. You can learn about things like photography, marketing, graphic design, illustration, animation, as well as podcasting and web design. You can also, though, take music classes like voice lessons, guitar lessons, piano lessons, bass lessons, music theory, songwriting, and music production. You can learn about all that stuff. With over 600,000 students and more than 8,000 teachers, Skillshare is a trusted source of knowledge on almost any creative subject that you want to learn about. Go to www.skillshare.com to start learning today. And if you use the promo code DiveBarRockstar, you can get a free 1-month trial. But we also have another amazing offer for you. If you use promo code DiveBarRockstar30, that's DiveBarRockstar30, you will get 30% off your first year annual membership. 30% off. That's huge. And it will really help out the podcast. If you're interested in taking a different career path, improving your existing skills, or just want to explore a subject that you've always dreamed about doing, check out Skillshare.com and start learning today. Skillshare.com, promo code DiveBarRockstar for a free 1-month trial and DiveBarRockstar30 for 30% off your first year annual membership. I'd like to take a second and thank you for listening to the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast. Getting the word out is a vital part of what it takes to keep this show on the road, and the easiest way to help is to subscribe wherever you listen, and if you have an extra minute or two, please leave a review. You can also follow our page on Facebook, which is the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, or follow me on Instagram at Dive Bar Rockstar. Okay, enough begging. I hope you're having a great time, and once again, thank you for listening. Well, speaking of music, you do have an album that you've mentioned. I found 2 albums on Spotify, actually. But I have a Bone in the USA is probably the best title that I can imagine. I only have one question. Is that your butt on the cover?
And the record company guy, bless his heart, we couldn't use it for the album cover. He wouldn't use it. So I did a mock-up of the Bruce Springsteen cover, and instead of the rag it was like a working man, white T-shirt, jeans. You can't see the guys, but you assume it's Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
And he's got like a rag in his back pocket, like he's a hard-working guy. And so I just put my trombone there in my back pocket.
It's genius.
Yeah, it was more of just a kind of a funny line, but the record company guy, poor Fred, thought he was going to get sued.
Yeah,
I guess it was before irony really got popular.
Right. Yeah. Or maybe it was after.
Yeah, maybe.
The Beatles had mastered it, and now it's over.
We didn't. We weren't doing Springsteen. We were just trying to be a funk band, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that is the awesome part about it. Like, it's not a joke of a record by any means. Like, the tunes are amazing. The playing is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're great players.
And like Michael Paolo is all over it. Did you like co-write a lot of that stuff with him, or is that
no? I didn't.
Or?
I didn't share any credits with anybody.
Sweet, you were smart.
But Michael was a big part of that band. There were some great players in the band, and we were all kind of new in L.A., so it was
wow.
and Michael went on to left town to play with Al Jarreau, so a lot of the guys, Greg Smith was playing Barry sax, and Greg was doing Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, and then he was doing went out with the Eagles when the Eagles added a horn section. So yeah, there were a lot of great players. And of course, great trombone players, trumpet players, and many of whom are gone now. So it's a sort of the passage of time is this, and yet the music isn't all that different than it was before smooth jazz,
right?
But it's all groove oriented instrumental jazz.
Yeah,
and so it doesn't sound dated to me anyway.
No, there's only one tune that I was like, it's 1985. I'm waiting to hear gated reverb on the drums.
I used a drum machine on a couple of tracks.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that does date it. That does
an inside joke.
Oh, well, that was
has a gated reverb on there. I was like, now we're in the 80s.
Yeah,
there we go. Now we're there.
Yeah.
Which to me, I'm a massive 80s guy. So
but especially drum sound is very, that has not, or that evolves beyond the gated reverb.
Yeah. And Michael Palo just kills on that song. Everybody does, and the guitar player,
Paul Villapiano. Yeah. And Paul's still in Los Angeles. He's an amazing musician and a great reader, and so he was playing with when Esa-Pekka Salonen would do things with guitar with the L.A. Philharmonic. Paul was his guy, but and those guys, everybody sort of found their own way. Our bass player Paul Morar went back to the city. He was from Chicago, so he moved back to Chicago. He was out for the NAMM show last year, and we had a 40th anniversary hang, with the rhythm section guys, and that was really a formative time. The music is that thing where it brings people together and musicians together, where even when you haven't seen somebody for 20 years. When you've played music with them, there's a connection, to me anyway.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That never goes away.
Yeah.
And how hard people have worked to have the technique and get to where they are. And I have such respect for other musicians. And so there is a sort of a connective tissue that music stimulates. It's really great.
Absolutely. It's interesting that it's not like this trombone record.
I go with my strengths.
I mean, it really features everybody killing, and then you pop in once in a while, but you wrote all the stuff. So what were your thoughts as far as that? Obviously that's intentional. I don't want to just make it a trombone record, but so you're showcasing your writing, or you're just writing tunes for your band at the time, or
I think a lot of times, a musical idea will have its own, will kind of call for what is supposed to happen. Like in music is I've always been interested in playing, but I've always been interested in writing music, and the harmony is always a big fascination with me.
Gotcha.
And I'm not a really great keyboard player, but I play well enough that you can sit down. I can still sit down at any time and find something new and something interesting, mostly through the piano.
Gotcha.
And then that will it seems like that dictates where it goes. Trombone and me, I'm not especially technically gifted. I mean, I'm not like playing. I don't like count off Donna Lee at 220 and say, "Let's burn, baby."
Right.
So I think groove was the hardest thing for me to get next to. To find
Interesting, yeah.
Infectious grooves. That was not my forte. And so I kind of counted on other guys to help take it in that direction. And because harmony and melody were kind of my greatest fascination. So that usually dictated. So it wasn't always, trombone was not the destination.
Right. Well, that's not unlike Jimmy, actually. Jimmy Pankow. He says the same thing, really. And he's a composer and a writer. And it's like, the trombone is just what he got stuck playing, the way he would probably put it. But
what an inspiration he's been as far as writing horn parts, because he writes the stuff he writes lays really well on the trombone. And I think if you ask Lee and Ray, they would say that it lays really well for the trumpet and the sax too. He writes it. You can tell when a keyboard player has written the horn parts,
right,
and when a trombonist has written the horn parts.
Right.
And Jimmy was maybe the very best at that, at writing human phrases that they sound good because they lay well on the instruments.
Oh, that's great. And is that uncommon? Like, as far as when you go out and you read charts or you get handed charts?
It's I don't know if it's uncommon, but sometimes there's really cool stuff, but it's very difficult to play. And it doesn't lay well for the individual instruments. But it may sound really great in the end result, but it was really hard to do, and would be hard to reproduce. You could record it, and I think that's the genius of the Chicago thing. It was just the three horns, and they may have doubled, and once in a while maybe they swapped notes, or maybe Jimmy took it up or down an octave, maybe, but it was basically three horns and three notes. They weren't trying to make it into a big band. They weren't trying to make it into some overdubbed Michael Jackson horn parts or the Earth, Wind and Fire. It's a lot of horns. Right. And these guys have always kept it. And I think it made it a little more like a rock band. It wasn't so much ponderous, big horn stuff. It was tight and exciting sounding horn stuff.
I also found Songs of the Heartland.
Oh, yes.
Which is a totally different experience from Bone in the USA. I just have to say it again.
Well, I've always stayed close to my roots in Marshalltown, Iowa, and always had friends back there and would go back and play. And at some point, I guess it was maybe in the early 2000s, or maybe it started in 2000. We were doing a music festival it has one of those, it's the courthouse, the county seat. So there's a big old courthouse built in the 1840s or something. And there was a big town square, and it was sort of a mutual, trying to bring the arts to central Iowa, to Marshalltown. So I would go back every summer and play with an orchestra and a chorus. There was another Marshalltown native who was a vocal teacher at Boston University, BU. And so she would put a choir together, and they had a little orchestra. And so I wrote music for that. And so that evolved as sort of a way to, we were trying to send kids to Tanglewood Music Camp. So we would send 2 kids every year to this 3-week music camp to stimulate arts education in Marshalltown and central Iowa. So we did that for 7 summers. And so the CD is the product of that, just raising money and we sent a lot of kids to camp. It was a good thing. But once again, I'm not really the salesman. I'm not a great promoter. So I was.
Well, I just was blown away by it. Like, did you arrange that stuff?
Yeah. So it's all.
I mean, I mean, I was like in tears. Like, and it's funny to go from the first album, 20 years later to that album, and obviously that wasn't like a plan or anything, but it's just an interesting listening experience, because then you get to that and I'm like, this is stuff that people don't hear enough of anymore. This feels like real music. You know what I mean? Played by many people, just the kind of stuff that just goes right to your soul.
Thank you. It was
that America the Beautiful arrangement is just so cool. It's like so dark, and then it's not dark, and it's just so musical, and I just like, people need to hear more of that. You know what I mean?
Well, it was really fun to do, and it was fun to have an opportunity like that, a situation, a setting to write for an orchestra.
Yeah.
And I'd always written for strings, even back with Maynard, and I still do a fair amount of string writing. And just a triad can sound huge and beautiful with strings. And it was a good opportunity because, we were writing these were not professional musicians that were part of this festival.
So it's shocking to hear.
You had to write, with the idea of it not being highly technical.
Right.
So it was focused more on a feeling.
Mm-hmm. And how was it recorded? Because it's amazing.
Once again, I'm not a salesman, so we tried to record it with. We used the Iowa State University choir to sing.
I'm in the singing,
and I used. There were a few Iowa musicians, but we ended up. It was. We tried to get the Des Moines Symphony on board, and the symphony orchestras. We only needed 54 musicians, but we'd have to pay all 88 musicians that they had in the orchestra or something. I found it was so moronic that I found it frustrating and sad that I encountered that, because it was so much cheaper to record it at Eastwood Stage and Warner Brothers with LA's finest musicians. Jeez. And everybody was so energized and on board. And a lot of musicians who I know from the Midwest were in the orchestra, and so it came out great.
Yeah.
But it came out better than it would have come out if I had recorded it in Iowa, I think. Don't tell anybody that.
Well, it's incredible. It's just beautiful stuff, and so well everything about it. It just blew me away. I was like, oh, okay, this is different.
Thank you.
And I was
Eric.
riding on the bus. I probably had a glass of wine, so that helped. But I was
There's
just
nothing.
like,
There's
this
nothing
is
going on
amazing.
there. That
But it's like, it just reminded me, like, I should have more of this in my playlists, like, real instruments playing in a massive way, and like real musical things that like you can't ignore,
Well, and
this is not background music,
Well, I've come to appreciate classical music more, with the orchestra stuff than I did when I was a kid. I don't know if you noticed, maybe you're the same way. There's things that you sort of passed over, and you go back and you go, well, that's actually really cool. Like Maurice Ravel really had some cool, cool concepts. Those are amazing sounds.
Yeah.
And Aaron Copland, of course, I stole from almost blatantly. I think I'd heard that amateurs borrow, but professionals steal. So I've used that as one of my main mantras as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, my kid, like, to get him to sleep, sometimes we'll have just some classical music for sleeping, like with the plays. And Debussy comes up a lot. And like, we're like, oh my gosh, this stuff is just so beautiful.
There's that Samuel Barber had written, now I know, is it like a concerto overture, just like a 12-minute piece, but it's this beautiful, perfect for dozing, but for intelligent sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there was one other gig I wanted to ask you about it. You played with Etta James.
Well, Eric, you know that I'll play with almost anyone.
But what was that experience?
Well, actually, that was some of my buddies, Jimmy Zavala and Lee Thornburg, were playing with her. I mean, those are the guys that initially I had done the Rod Stewart and Tom Petty.
Gotcha.
That was the horn section. So then in the mid-'90s, I guess, they started playing with Etta James, mostly Jimmy Z, because he played harmonica and saxophone.
God, yeah.
He'd left Rod's gig to do the Eurythmics.
Oh, cool.
And Missionary Man and stuff. And then he got the gig with Etta, so they would drag me out once in a while to play with him. And that was such great. I mean, Etta was one of those, like the real deal. She could sing like one note, no vibrato. It meant more to me anyway than listen to Mariah Carey sing 25 notes in the same time span.
Wow.
She had a sense about her. It came, it was soulful. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was cool, and like it was a good experience, or was it?
Oh yeah,
it was get to hang with her a bit, or was it more of a pit kind of gig? Or?
Yeah, I mean, her husband Artis was there, and her sons were playing bass and drums.
Oh,
So
wow, cool.
yeah, so it was a very much a family kind of thing.
That's cool.
And that's like another level. Like I had gone out with Joe Bonamassa, 10 years ago or something, and we're playing the blues. We had done a couple of those video things. The one we did at Red Rocks was the music of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf, and each set started with it was a set of Muddy Waters and a set of Howlin' Wolf, and they started with a little bit of an interview where I remember Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf was saying, "The blues is when you ain't got no money. And you got the blues when you ain't got no girl. When you ain't got no place to live. That's the blues." And here was a bunch of guys who all had houses and cars and playing this music, which was great music. And Joe is a great guitarist, but the essence of the blues is that kind of angst, that frustration, that sadness, whatever,
Suffering.
It's real life.
Right.
And so
you gotta have something to sing about.
Yeah. And so, I was merely, I merely stood in with Etta and was honored to be on stage with her. I didn't have the same experience, but I could get a bit of a sense of what that means to sing. She was able to channel that
right
into her music, and I was inspired by it, definitely.
That's so cool. I mean, she's Legendary, another legend. You've had quite a career of legends.
Well, fame by association is really that's where I'm at, man.
Because you've also played with Keiko Matsui. Speaking of legends,
yes,
another gig that I was on for 12 years and never played together on that. But you've done a lot of her records, right?
Yeah, and she's she has a whole other special talent.
Yeah.
That she brings to her music,
for sure,
and illuminates and touches people. I think that's maybe the cool thing about music is that there's something about, if it's done well, there's something that attracts you or attracts people, and as musicians, it's exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean that's what kept me on the gig for so long. Really, is like she's so different. It's not smooth jazz like the rest of the smooth jazz world. Not that there's anything wrong with that, I guess, but but she's got a particular take.
It's good. It's good people too. She's a genuinely good person. It seems like, anyway. I don't know her all that well. I shouldn't maybe be speaking out, but I don't know about you, but I've encountered some people that aren't that nice.
Oh, for sure.
In the music business.
And
I used to tell Jimmy, I remember taking this gig with Neil Diamond back in, I don't know, just 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't like the music. I was kind of, when I was added on, the guy's been doing the gig for 20 years. It was the only gig they did. I felt like I was climbing on a submarine after, and it was like, what is this? It's like another world. And, after the gig, we'd sit around in this dressing room and have soup. And it was just not my jam. And, I used to tell Jimmy, it's like the Chicago gig is, it's twice the fun. And maybe it's half the money, but it's twice the fun. So we make concessions for monetary reasons. Yeah. But it can be frustrating, and so it makes you appreciate when you're working with nice people, and doing great music. Yeah, and so I wouldn't go back. Well, luckily I don't have to go back to some of those musical situations that I did before. But it's sometimes it's less than inspiring. Yeah,
and I struggled with it. It kind of turned me into not a nice person too. Like, I get grumpy when I'm not
being part of it.
Yeah. And now I'm on a gig that I just love and everyone's so cool and it's just so fun. And I look back at who I was on some of those other gigs and I'm sorry about that, guys.
Exactly.
I really am a good person, but you get put in the wrong situation and, especially over years sometimes, not, different gigs and it's rarer to be on a gig where everyone's cool than it is to be on a gig where you're just making the money.
And it seemed like maybe as we were coming up, I don't want to drag you into this, but it was that feeling of you just wanted to play music and you wanted a gig. And so you were happy to be there and that can sustain you for a while. Mm-hmm. But it is when you're with people, and actually the Rod Stewart gig kind of got that way too, where it seemed like he surrounded himself with people that just said yes. Mm-hmm. And then you were kind of going, well, this is not a good feeling to be part of this. Yeah. And so, it does run its course.
Yeah. Yeah. Trick is knowing when to walk away. And when you're making your living, sometimes you just have no choice. I used to say sometimes too, it's like, look, if I had a better gig, I'd be on it. So I better just shut up, and just get the tour done and get home. But it is nice to be on a good gig with great people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you.
And back at you.
Yeah. And I first met you, I was playing with Greg Karukas. And I remember being at a rehearsal and overhearing you talk about Chicago, and you had just filled in some dates or something. And
I'm a shameless name dropper. Let's just be honest. Let's put it out there, okay?
Well, that's the nice part about it's funny you say that because you come from a small town, because I do too, and that's what people think there. But that's the one reason I used to say too that I love being in LA is because I'm with people that are like me, so I can say a name like Chicago and people don't flinch because they're going out with Rod Stewart or what, whatever, they're going out with Peter Gabriel. It's just, I just love the comfort of not being, having to feel like that, so I didn't take it that way.
Well, the British guys used to make a gesture when you drop a name. The guys with the Who, especially. I remember they would say, you'd mention something. You dropped this. They'd hold out their hand as though they were catching the name you dropped.
Right.
I'm sorry, a visual's not good for a podcast, is it? Sorry.
I'll explain it in the outro.
No, just cut it out. Anyway.
I got to start videotaping these things. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting because, I've always been a huge Chicago fan. So, I was probably in LA for a year. I was there maybe 6 months before I first played with Greg.
I remember you being a kid, and I had no idea you sang. And
a lot of people didn't for a long time.
Yeah. So when did that come up?
Well, I kind of always had, but then when in Denver, kind of the biggest name there was Nelson Rangel, sax player, and there wasn't a ton of guys that could do the gig, and I got the gig, and it just sort of led to, when I got to LA, which is like the smooth jazz mecca, it just led to more smooth jazz, and so I ended up just doing it for a long time because that was just my gigs, and I would sing in my own band, and I'd make my own records, and I kind of felt like that was my thing. It's like my voice is mine. I use that on the things I like, and then I didn't want to get into it, but then, and I've told the story on the podcast before, but then one time I was playing with Lee Ritenour, like I was subbing for Melvin Davis on that gig, and I was like, biggest gig I'd ever had, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So we go up to the Mid-State Fair, and we're opening up for Kenny Loggins, and it was like the Kenny Loggins guys were like, ooh, who's in Lee Ritenour's band? And I'm like, ooh, who's in Kenny Loggins band? And we do our set, and it's amazing, and then Kenny gets up there, and I was just like, what have I been doing? Why am I doing all this instrumental music? Like, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter. Like, it just, and it took me a long time to sort of maneuver my way into some places where I could be singing again, and then to end up here is just like mind-boggling to a certain degree. But
you seem perfectly cast for it, but I would not have known that you to even.
Well, who did know is Mike O'Neill, because I had done his gig, and I had actually hired him to play on a track that I had written with Noriko Oling and Chad Wright and that whole scene. I don't know if you know those guys. But anyways, so Mike O'Neill knew, and then when they were having, they wanted to make a change, Wally called Mike, and I hadn't seen him since I had played with Greg, like probably 15 years before that. And he was like, oh, you should call Eric Baines. He sings, and he's great. And here I am. Because of that Greg Krugas gig.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't it? This is a weird world.
Well, that is how it works, I think. And I know I got to interject this, the wisdom of my dad was saying, of course, he knew nothing about music. And, when I wanted to be a professional musician, he had, they were encouraging, but they had no idea what that entailed. Mm-hmm. Not even to be able to discourage me but he had said, just be careful what you do well, because people will ask you to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And I think that's so true with music. Of if you're not feeling it, or if it's something that you do feel, put it out there, and people will ask you to do it again.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it seemed like good advice especially for young people coming up. Don't get really good at weddings.
Oh man. Oh man, I know, it's so.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to touch a chord there.
Oh man, the years, the weddings, so many of them. Yeah, it's so tricky though, because like I just wanted to. I was determined to make my living playing music, and when you put yourself in that thing, it's like I don't have the luxury of deciding the gigs I want to play on or the music I get to play. I need to go. Who's going to hire me? I've got a hole on a Saturday. If it's a wedding, it's going to be a wedding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I've approached my career. So that's probably another reason why when I finally got to some gigs that were great, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Cause I don't know that I was making the right choices to end up here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean, I kind of was in the sense that like, I always knew that these weddings are horrible and I don't want to be doing them. So I never got in a wedding band that was making good money. And in LA, you can make a living playing weddings. It's
Well, and there were some great musicians
and that's where,
playing those gigs. And it did seem like some guys just got stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And I never,
because it is a comfortable, if you're working for Apolito or Dubois or like some of these major agents, it's steady work. And you can live, even in this day and age.
my bad attitude usually, came before me, so I didn't have to. My personality got me fired from most of those situations.
I didn't have that luxury either.
But you do, you have to work, and you have to be playing all the time, and
I was always just so scared, and not willing to have a day job. That was just like whatever I got to do, But I think that's another thing that led to me not being a nice guy on certain gigs too, because I was just like, I got to get out of here, Yeah. So that's another trade-off. You're like risking your reputation if you stay too grumpy at a gig for too long,
Well, and I remember that transition point where you go, I have a really clear idea of what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I haven't completely arrived at what I do want to do. And so I always thought if I, as long as I'm practicing, as long as I'm working at my craft, the opportunity will come, the door will open.
Yeah.
And when it opens, you have to be ready to go through it.
Bingo.
And and part of that is being available. Mm-hmm. Guys that get tied up in, the teaching or, and there's nothing wrong with teaching or, but you have to be available for those gigs to happen.
Yeah. And generally, a lot of times in my experience, they've happened. Okay, we're leaving on Friday. It's Tuesday.
Yes.
And if that's what you want to do, if that's where you want to go, you're going to possibly make some people mad. You know what I mean? You need to get in your book and find subs, and you need to go out and do it,
And how many sessions are like, hey, can you get over here this afternoon?
Right. Yeah.
We got to put horns on this track.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this stuff, I always felt like I had to be, living right in, North Hollywood where I first moved. And, like you go, oh, that was horrible. But I felt like I had to be close.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
To be available.
Yeah. Or make yourself available. I guess that's what I'm amending, with it, or be willing to drop everything. I mean, I've gotten big gigs and like had 3 months booked out of lots of gigs and just said, but this gig came and this is where I'm going. So I'm on the phone frantically, and then eventually I got to the point where it's like, I can't, if you're not cool with me subbing out, then I can't take your gig because I'm not here to be in a wedding band. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I get something else, I'm not going to be searching for a sub kind of thing. That's always a good basis to turn something down. Is if I can't do it, I couldn't ask anybody else, to do it. And I don't know. That's
I'm always like, I will sub it out. Like your gig is going to happen and it's going to be great. I know a ton of bass players. Someone's going to be available. I'll give you first. Is there someone you like? You call them first. But don't worry, I'm not going to bail on you. Like I couldn't. Just subbing out always makes me feel horrible, anyways, because I said I was going to be there and now I'm not. I had to get used to that, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't do this $75 gig when a tour just called me. You know what I mean?
Well, I think in LA, people understand that too. I think maybe more.
Some of them. And some of them don't.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to learn too. It's like, well, that's what I'm saying. Like towards the end, I'm just like, as if my career's over. I don't know. Now I have a pretty steady gig, but you know how this goes. Maybe in 6 months I'll be back there, playing weddings. But it's like, you got to understand that what I really want to do is that. So, I'll cover your gig, but if I can't sub out, then I turned down Frankie Valli at the time, and because they weren't into it, and I was with Keiko at the time, and the money was about the same. But Keiko, I subbed out for 6 months one time, but it was always my gig, and she's understanding of that, and I would do whatever I could to prepare people,
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know, just it's just part of the game, I guess. I don't know. But I try to be good. Again, your gig is going to happen. It's going to be amazing. I know lots of great players. Don't worry. You know what I mean?
Well, it's that theme that we are sidemen.
Yes.
So our name is not on the marquee, and so it's we have to. I had done some gigs with Max Weinberg was when Conan came to L.A. And he wanted to put a big band together of all things, and so he was enthusiastic. He goes, "Oh, I hear you right," and so I was playing in his. We had just a few gigs. And he'd called me, and then the show fell apart, and he was going to move back, but he still had a couple of gigs on the West Coast, and I had some other gig. And I said, well, he'd called and said, hey, can you do these, like a festival in Newport Beach or something, and then a gig up in the Bay Area. Can you do these gigs? And I say, well, I have this band from TV I'm playing with, a bunch of TV actors, but if your gig pays more, I'd rather do that. And he goes, well, you already have a gig. And I go, well, yeah, but if you pay more, and he goes, no, man, that's not the way. I go, oh my gosh, I am a total whore. I felt bad, and and he goes, just keep your gig, and don't worry about it. And it was like I felt like a heel, oh geez, I guess that's I'm a sideman.
It's so tricky because like I mean I get that you feel like this is about honor, but I'm trying to pay the rent. You know what I mean? I don't do this for fun. I do my own gigs for fun, Right. My gigs cost me money. I'll pay for that, for that kind of joy, but this is my living. And, I don't have the luxury of turning stuff down sometimes, but I'm always, anyways, I know it's
not always a good look.
Exactly. Yeah. But oh well. Well, dude, this has been awesome. I'm not going to take up any more of your time on this day off. But thank you so much for talking to me. This has been just everything this podcast is supposed to be.
Great fun. Thanks for having me,
It's
Eric.
always an honor to play with you, and listening to your music, was just inspiring. So thank you for that.
You. Thanks. And I'll look forward to hearing the edited version where you make me sound intelligent.
Well, I'm going to give it my best.
You have your work cut out for you, young man.
Thanks, man. Well, man, this dude, he really knows how to hang, which is something I've talked about on previous episodes, but probably bears repeating. That like hanging is a skill that it's kind of vital to being a road musician. We spend so much time together out here on buses and airports and vans and backstage that it's really important to be fun to be around, or at least know how to engage in an interesting conversation and be somewhat entertaining. Like it's one of those things you notice when you're around really experienced road musicians. It's like it's a skill. It's the hang. The guy can really hang, and it's it gets monotonous out here. It's important to be able to bring something to the table, or at least just be easygoing. That's it's a vital skill, and it's kind of shocking, some of the people that I run into that don't have that skill, and it's a drag to be on the road with them. I gotta say, but when you start touring, just pay attention to the older guys and how they do it. This guy's a master, and it's such a pleasure to be on the road with him. The other thing he said that I thought was really cool was, he brought up that he started his own band when he got to LA. And that's something I've done as well. I mean, I started in Denver and I had my own band called The Fringe. If you can find that record, then you've really got a treasure. Probably on some used record shelf, if you're lucky, in Denver only. But at any rate, that's how I began, and I was hiring people, and giving people work is a great way to get work, because you're always grateful to get work, and if you give people a really pleasant experience and you pay them well, then they're going to want to return the favor. So when I got to LA, I did the same thing. I got a call to play at the Baked Potato with Don Randy, who owns the Baked Potato. I think we mentioned him in the podcast, and he is the longtime owner of the legendary. I guess his son owns it now, but It's a legendary club out in LA, and I got to be a part of. I got a last minute call to play with his band, so I was like, hey, I've got a band. Can you put it together? And I started hiring people right off the bat. So then that's a really great way to be remembered. And if you hire them and you give them a pleasant experience, they're going to want to return the favor. And now here I am in Nashville, and I just played my first local gig with my own band in June. And, not necessarily with the goal in mind of getting work, but it's just a great way to break the ice in town and with new musicians that you're just meeting. So it's interesting that was the path that he took. A euphonium is very similar to a baritone horn, but has a larger conical bore that produces a darker, richer sound, while a baritone has a smaller, mostly cylindrical bore for a brighter and more direct sound. Well, that is the episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk at you next time.
I'm a dive-bar rock star.
Wow, you've made it to the end. I'm hoping it's because you completely enjoyed yourself and are now filled with knowledge and inspiration to move forward with your dreams. If that is the case and you would like to stay informed of new episodes, live events, and general news, please go to divebarrockstar.com and sign up for the mailing list. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, or complaints about anything you hear on the show, please email me at fanmail@divebarrockstar.com, and you may even end up on the show. We at the Dive Bar Rockstar podcast, with all of our hearts, thank you for listening, and remember, it's all about dreams.